Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, okay, assalamu alaikum. So the text I've chosen for this week, there were the three following one. And if I'm just refresh. So there's a text from Ibn al-Arabī, from al-Fārābī, and then from al-Rāzī. So starting with the one of Rāzī. So I'll quickly summarize the three of them, and if we can discuss the three of them together, it might be easier. So the one for Rāzī, the way he writes it is like a discussion between himself and a heretic. That's how he calls it. And in that discussion with the heretic, he's trying to justify prophethood. And the accusation of the heretic is like, okay, if God is all merciful and wise, why do you have differences within people? Like, why do you have one as leaders and the other ones as followers? Because that distinction creates conflict, maybe enmity, and enmity will lead to destruction, like to fight destruction, resentments, and that's not wise, or that's not merciful. And al-Rāzī replies back saying that no, on the contrary, that distinction, that difference in level, in position to have leaders and followers is natural and is good in itself. I'm not sure if I agree with the way he argue for it, but that's the main argument. He's trying to call for what you call it naturalness. That's what you see in nature. You'll have people that are disposed differently, that have different abilities, and you cannot counter it. You have to accept it. And in that difference in level of level, it can be like intellectual level or physical abilities. It creates dependence. One will depend on the other. One will be rich, another one will be poor, meaning that the rich will have to take care of the poor, and the poor just has to be patient towards the rich, and so on. So he said that dependence can be seen as merciful and as wise in itself. So it's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily a reason why you should reject religion, God, in Islam. So that's the main argument. And again, that argument is really to justify prophethood. Why would you need a prophet to lead people? Why can people just derive laws by themselves through philosophy? That's the argument. And al-Rāzī is saying that no, Allah sent prophets to lead others because he sees mercy within it. And in a way, I said I might not agree fully with that line of argument because I see it in terms of paradigms, and I see that Rāzī lives within that Islamic paradigm in the first place. So for him, he assumes that Allah is merciful and he will see mercy all around. He will interpret what he sees around in terms of Allah's mercifulness. But I could see how you can counter it. If someone refuses to see mercy, he can. Anyway, regardless. So that's the arguing for the prophethood. And then the next text, Fārābī comes along and tries to go maybe one step further. It's like, okay, yes, you have prophets. They establish religion, but then that religion is mostly practice. That religion, he equates even religion to Sharia, to law. That religion establishes practices without necessarily giving the reasoning behind these practices. Like, you have to pray 5 times a day. Why do you have to pray? That's it. You just have to pray. Allah said so, the Prophet did. alayhi salam, so you should do the same. And he said, that's okay for the mass. The mass can just take the law and apply the law. But if you want to make sense of the law, then you have to go to philosophy, to the theory. And that's what Farabi argues, that yes, you need the Prophet. The Prophet establishes the law, gives you guidelines. But if you want to understand the meaning behind these guidelines, you need philosophy, you need the theory. And to the point where he puts religion subordinate to philosophy. He said the philosophy is the theory, is the ultimate knowledge. And then from it derives the practice, which is the religion for him, the revelation. It's like he sees philosophy is necessarily coincide with religion, because philosophy is the source, and then religion is the practice that is revealed to the people. So he mentioned quite a few times that he sees religion as being subordinate to philosophy, which is interesting. And while making these distinctions, he tries to explain, okay, you have the Prophet, then someone else, like you, that's a leader, he agrees for the leadership of the Prophet, alayhi salam. But then when the Prophet is not here, alayhi salam, you need a leader, a just ruler. And then he starts describing what a just ruler looks like. And ideally, the just ruler should establish the laws of religion, should action this Sharia. And he said, so he described what the just ruler should be. And his ideal description is like the just ruler should enact the revelation. But then he says, okay, what if that ruler dies? Someone has to replace him. What does the successor should look like? And he said, ideally, the next ruler should emulate the first and continue what the first started. It's like he said, that the first ruler cannot emit judgment on everything because he is only limited by his own context. And the successor would have a new context. So that successor should emulate the first and try to emulate the previous one, but in that new context. And it's not easy because they might not know each other. So to make the link, you need jurists. That's how he argues for the need for jurists, like religious jurists, that can ensure the continuation of that knowledge, and of the application of the Sharia. And which, I don't know, it was quite funny for me. It's like the first text tries to justify prophethood, and then this one, Farabi tries to justify the need for jurists to continue, in a way, the teaching of the prophets. And he's saying, and so what was it? So he said the jurists are of different kinds. You can have a jurist for opinions and a jurist for actions. And through this, I understand he wants a jurist, meaning for opinion, which for me, I understand it's a philosopher or theologian. And then the jurist for action is more like a qadi, what we call today jurist, the one who gives judgment. And then the next text, I mean, just to continue on the jurist, a last characteristic of that jurist, he says that the jurist is here to ensure the continuation of the ruler, of having a just ruler. So the jurist must be able to derive the intent of the first ruler. And that's why I thought it was quite maybe contentious, interesting. It's like you had the Prophet, alayhi salam. The Prophet gave laws, asked people to do things, and forbid people to do other things. And these are kept. They're kept in what hadith. And from this hadith, we derive Sharia, the rulings. But he said maybe these rulings are written words. If you take these written words in a different context, they can be understood differently, they can be understood differently. What if you then, like few generations down the line, the ruler take the same rulings, try to apply them, but the context is not fit, and by applying them, you end up messing up. You end up going away from the maqasid, the higher objectives. Then what? He said, then that's where the jurist plays a role. The jurist is here to retrieve the intention behind the rule. That's why he said philosophy is important, because philosophy gives you the theory, and that's where the rule should derive. The philosophy helps you derive the higher objectives, and then the application should be here to achieve these objectives. Like you have the philosophy, the theory. From this, you derive the Sharia, the ruling that you apply on the ground, but these rulings should fulfill the higher objectives. And I would say to derive the intention of the speaker is not straightforward. If you remember one of the texts we had a few weeks ago from Ghazali, where he warns people of beware of asserting intentions on Allah or the Prophet ﷺ, because you might be wrong, because that's an interpretative act, and you can make a mistake. So you have to beware of that. So then the next text, it's Ibn Arabi. And I might not have grasped all of it, I agree. But for him, he goes back to trying to redefine what religion is. And he agrees, religion, part of it, religion is submission, revelation. Like you have to submit to revelation. You have revelation, this revelation asks you to do certain things, forbids you to do others, and you have to submit to it. That's one meaning of religion. He agrees with that. But he gives different meanings to religion. He said religion is also reward or results of your actions. And here I understand he takes the word deen, a deen, like the consequences of your actions. And he said these consequences can be either good or bad. It depends on what you do. So he said that understanding of religion is not from revelation, but depends on what you do, on your actions, whether you do good or bad. And then he gives a third meaning of religion, and he equates it to tradition, customs, which this is the part where I'm not sure to have understood what he means by tradition or customs. But what was interesting in that text for me, although he defines religion clearly as submission to revelation, rewards or consequences of your actions, and tradition, he emphasizes or he validates subjectivity. But yes, you might have revelation coming down to the Prophet ﷺ and conveyed to us through scholars, through the hadith. But you also have inner revelation, ilham. And he values ilham as much. And that was funny for me. The example he talks about was the monasticism of the Christians. And when I read this verse, it was verse 57:27, when Allah talks about the monasticism of the Christians, I always read the verse as criticizing monasticism. But the way I read it here in Ibn Arabi's text, I don't see the same critique. On the contrary, I see that he validates that monasticism. And if you go through the verse, actually, Allah does not criticize monasticism directly. He criticizes people who have gone astray from that monasticism, who have corrupted the monasticism. So Ibn Arabi says that, yes, again, you have revelation to the prophets, but you also have revelation within yourself, in your heart. Allah might make you more inclined to some practices, even though they were not given by the Prophet, he inclines your heart to some practices that are good, that helps you go to Allah. For example, monasticism. And it's only when that path becomes corrupted that it becomes blameworthy. But otherwise, it's allowed. And through this, I see that Ibn Arabi tries to justify his tariqah, like his Sufi ancient. Which is, for me, it was a new reading of that verse. It was interesting. So again, he validates subjective experience. And that comes back again when he talks about the example of Amr and Zayd, the two persons. He said, he tries to say that maybe Zayd and Amr are both male, they are both person, they are both human beings. But to be similar does not mean to be the same. What differs between them is their individuality, their experience, their experiential knowledge is still different. Meaning that you have knowledge that might be for all, like the revelation to the Prophet, the Sharia, and the application of that Sharia, that's for all the same. But everyone has its own perception, its own subjective experience of the world. And that's, for everyone, can be different. And he said that like ilham, revelation, individual revelation, is different for every person. Depending on your abilities, you'll have different, I call it realization of the path to follow. That's what we mean by the mystery of the inward aspect. It's like the self-disclosure, in a way, isn't function of the person's ability directly, but he values it. Then he talks about qadr, that at the end it's still Allah who decides what's happening, the consequences of the results of your actions. All right. I'll stop here. But for me, these are the three main aspects. So for the first, again, for the al-Rāzī, it was trying to the justification of prophethood. Then for al-Fārābī, Ibn al-Fārābī, it was the justification of prophethood and of the jurists. And then for Ibn al-Arabī, it was, yes, he agrees that revelation to the prophet is one source of knowledge, but you also have individual revelation based on your own ability that you shouldn't neglect and you should take into account. Also as a path towards Allah, meaning including in your practice. It will influence your practice as well.
Jazakallah khair, Adwir. I just want to start with the discussion of the first chapter. So the question I have, al-Rāzī in the first chapter, is this the Rāzī, the Medic we know about, or the different Rāzī? Do you think? I don't know. Because I think in this Rāzī, it looks like, is he Shia or something? Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I've just noticed that this Rāzī seems to be Shia. Anyway.
There are different Rāzī, and this one is Abū Ḥātim al-Rāzī. It's not, it might not be Fakhruddin al-Rāzī.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. But anyway, I read this conversation between him and this other person, and how they trying to show that prophethood is leadership, is a position of leadership, and it's almost like need to be given to kind of a person of elite, and therefore if you have it, you kind of support elitism. And why Allah wants to give it to kind of a leader, why we need a leader. I think that discussion is a bit wrong, to be honest with you. I thought it's obvious that, and I think Allah makes this in at least in Quran very clearly, that prophethood is devoid from your concept of leadership in earth, and is given to a literate person to dissociate this directly clearly from intellectual leadership. And the Prophet ﷺ was from a pure background, as in good tribe, but he was not a leader. He was definitely not given a leadership position in his tribe. He was like a orphan or something, a position of weakness. I think because Allah wanted to dissociate the position of a prophet from the day-to-day leadership position, intellectually rich person, beautiful person, all that kind of stuff. And I thought this is important, because leadership in your era, like nowadays, who is leadership? This comes from accepting the norms. So the leadership in Quraysh at that time were corrupt people, but to the people of Quraysh were their rightful leaders, either by the race, by being male, by being rich, by just being a son of someone noble. So if you already accept the normal norms of leadership at that point, you accept measures of corruption or wrong. Automatically women are not allowed, or black are slaved, so they cannot be leader at that time. So I think that's completely no. And I think the position of prophethood has basically a function. So the person has to be, does not dirty the message. So the person has to be a carrier of the message. If the person is dirty, corrupt, is like a dirty bottle, you put into it water. So it doesn't. So the prophet has to be a clean background, and clearly come with no old intellect. And that's exactly why the prophets are not like calling for communism and then say, oh, by the way, I've got this. Like, has to be an empty vessel. And the prophet role is just basically to give you the evidence, the message, and evidence for it. And the evidence for the message would be miracles, if any. Okay, so you don't need a PhD to deliver a message. This is the Quran, revelations. And by the way, there is a miracle, which is a stick, Quran, Zamzam water, whatever. So I really think that the prophet role is ad hoc, like on top of all the normals, and it just to say, this is a message, my history, and it's devoid from human intervention, because I have no history myself, intellectual history. But the prophet is not intellectual, as in like, oh, I am elite, I'm Aflatun, I am Aristotle, I am the best poet in the Arab world. The Prophet ﷺ was not a poet or intellect. So I really think that therefore the message is completely away from any elitism in that era, because we know now that elitism in that time is, if you're scientific elite at that time, that means you're primitive, because you might probably had a geocentric, for example, view of Earth. And that means now we'll call you stupid, or call you misogynistic. So that's I'm really surprised that they try to link prophethood to leadership in any way. I think it has to do with a message.
I don't know if, because I still see the examples of David and Suleiman, for example, and they were leaders from birth. So I don't see religion necessarily trying to disentangle leadership from prophethood, because of these two examples. But in other cases, I agree that most of the prophets were not leaders. Like if I think of Yunus,
Ibrahim,
Yusuf,
Noah.
they were not necessarily leaders, yes, because their leaders were corrupted.
Yeah. So the leaders will come and they follow the status quo. So if you are a leader nowadays, you usually are politically alienated left or right, or if you're a scientist, you already come up with a view of evolution or God or that kind of stuff. So it's very difficult.
I'm thinking of, you still have the people of, I forgot if it's Ad or Thamud.
Yeah.
They say to the prophet, we had hope in you. It's like we were hoping that you would become leaders after us. So there was still some hope to that. Like,
So also you also maybe a bit of connection here is when the Jews ask Allah to send them a prophet that is a leader as well, and I think he sent David. I think that's when he sent David. They were expect the. But I mean, the key thing about the prophethood is that the prophet has a direct link with the God to explain what is right and wrong, rather than their own intellect. So maybe that's why prophets should be really almost like communicator of the message, not creator of the message. And but with David, maybe David becomes then the second, which basically when you talked about the second chapter, was basically a ruler, an applicator of the message. So David and Suleiman were good applicators because they are rulers. The Prophet ﷺ became an applicator when he became the leader of Medina. But then we talk about in the second two pieces about the jurists and the role of them, and philosophy. I agree with you. Philosophy cannot be on top of religion, cannot, because that is a construct limited to time and understanding. Yeah.
Like the way if I come back to that point of putting philosophy above religion,
yeah,
in today's context, for me, it would be like putting science above religion.
Correct. I see it this way. So it cannot be, but you always need, era by era, intellectual ability of humans to do two things: to explain the day-to-day rulings that you call them, I don't know what you call them, the rulers or the courts or Sharia laws and all this, when to start fasting. You always need the ritualistic applications. So you need jurors. Every era you need interpreters in this way. But also you need interpreters to do the purpose of the thing. Maybe things that are not to do with the day-to-day running, but maybe the tasting of the religion, the making sense of it. And these not necessarily will affect people who say, I accept, but maybe those who people who want to contemplate, philosophers.
Theologians or philosophers.
Yeah, like I mean, like doing things that are not affect your day-to-day life, like evolution, or the destiny of the past, of the destiny of the people in the future, or even the science of the signs of the days of judgment, or all that kind of stuff that doesn't affect your day-to-day. So, and these, because they are not supported by revelations, they need intellectuality. So I agree with you. You cannot bring anyone and say, please, be a ruler, be a judge, be a theologians. This is where I think intellect or leadership needs to be a factor. I agree. PhDs, whatever. So, but because you've got no direct link with God, and you need a lot of power because you have no right and wrong. There's no direct link. The Prophet ﷺ needs to have input from God. This is wrong. This is right. I don't know any daily basis or a weekly basis. So God will not have left the Prophet to say something wrong before correcting him quickly. But the humans have to base on them saying it, peer review, criticism, and therefore intellect, leadership is needed.
But it's like when I think of that text from al-Fārābī in practice, I fear that it would crystallize still a certain understanding of religion, and that could be
which understanding of religion?
Because for him it's like the first ruler, like the Prophet ﷺ, is right. Whatever he says is in accordance with divine law, and then he dies, and someone has to replace. And you have Abu Bakr, and then you have Umar, and then Uthman, and then you go down the generations, and he tries to set up a process so that you preserve justice, or you preserve that initial motivation and application of the law. But then you'll crystallize that understanding of the people a few generations ago, which might not be applicable. And even though he says, okay, you should learn the language of your land, you should learn, maybe you should know about the custom of your land to make sure that the laws still applies. Then it's like, how do you make then the distinction between between applying the law in a new context and just applying it to the letter, regardless of the context?
And I think you said something that made me think about the linkage of, or the need for a just ruler, or that interprets the religion, or something like that. And I think that is maybe was even the Prophet ﷺ predicted, gave us information that this will not be the same when he said they will be Khulafa Rashideen, and after that will be kind of a ruler that is based on hereditary, and then corrupt rulers and whatever. So the kind of intellect or interpreting religions, the jurist, don't have to be rulers. They can be just people who give the advice, like as you say, theologians or shuyukh, an employee, and then these things are taken by people living in a countries where the ruler is probably not religious or not even just. Like nowadays, where the ruling of the world is divided into so many countries, rather than the ruler of the Muslim world and the ruler of the Christian world, the Romans and the Persian, So more fragmented rulers, you don't expect them to rule by religion. But I think you mentioned something at the end, like the jurists or people who have a bit of revelation, is that what you said at the end?
That's what the next text with Ibn Arabi, where, well, for him, he values like personal revelation.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Which then, in a way, complicates everything. Because, like, how do you make sure that your inclination is divinely guided?
Yes.
Just led astray by shaitan.
Maybe is that a kind of a Sufi element to this, because of course they do believe that in piety you can raise to you get aspects of the prophethood. But we know, Adrian, that sometimes a good dreaming is a part of prophethood, and but is it to the extent? So revelation is not different. So there is a part of revelation that gives you, that does, so revelation, like if you have a revelation as in like, okay, but does not lead to an action, like a rule or a religious opinion. Maybe it leads you as a revelation for you to suggest something, or to discover some scientific, like discover where is, for example, Zamzam, or
confidence, or
I consider that when, for example, if I have a good idea, scientific idea, and maybe came through a dream or something, maybe say, okay, maybe Allah wants me to discover this medicine or something. I consider it as a revelation, because I didn't read it from a paper, but just like I had an idea. But
I would believe that here Ibn Arabi pushes it further and is ready to accept that, like, in a revelation as justification for religious practice, because of that verse of like the monasticism. When he writes about monasticism, again, he doesn't criticize it. He doesn't criticize it. He criticized the corruption of monasticism, but he said would still value that, yes, these people, these Christians, God made them more inclined to some type of zuhud, of monasticism. And that was okay. It was okay until they corrupted it. And that is still a religious practice. It's like you pray 5 times a day, and then you do something like more. Maybe you fast every day, or maybe you seclude yourself. It's still a huge change in practice. And he seems to value that, to agree with it. So it's not only just personal conviction, increasing personal conviction, or increasing in motivation in maybe praying.
Do you see nowadays, after the Prophet, there's really a need for prophethood? Like if the Prophet told us that the main point is that monotheistic nature of God, and okay, this is how you worship, basic worship, salah, hajj, siyam, that's it. Do you really need a prophet to tell you, like, oh, taking the flight is acceptable, praying over socks, making you over socks is acceptable? You know, do we, or I mean, that is already inherently forgivable if you make a mistake. It's not shirk. You know, if you make all these mistakes in applying your religion, it's not shirk. You know, in the details. What is haram, mortgage haram? You know, there's a few things that are not important. It's not a killer. You don't need a prophet to tell you this kind of mortgage is halal, but the other one is, you know. So maybe Allah has kind of accept that these things will be arrived by human who are not prophets, and therefore they need intellect. And of course, if they for 50 years apply something wrong, that's okay. You know, like, you know, if for 50 years they say the music is halal and then it turned to be haram, or vice versa.
Or maybe if I can see differently, it's like the nature of the test changes. It's like if I see that the life as being a test. At the time of the Prophet, the test was to obey or to disobey the Prophet. That's it. And now our test is to interpret so that we can follow the higher objective as much as we can.
Yes, I think the high objective of a certain religion that has become universal religion, and that is part dependent on humans of every country, every generation, make it fit. And this, you need the jurisprudence, you need the intellect. This is what I expect, that there must be leaders who will adopt the religion or not adopt it. For example, there were leaders who decided that no, to adopt the religion we have to go move away from the Saudi Arabia kind of one way of interpreting things. These are leaders that the Islam needs. Or like Zaghlul al-Najjar, who said, let's talk about miracles up to a certain level, and then someone like, for example, like you, or someone else who says, okay, let's take the decision a little bit further for the next 50 years, for the next 100 years. And these people should come up with intellect and leadership. So intellect is one thing many people have, but leadership is not what a lot of people have. Like, no one wants, a lot of the scientists who are cleverer than you want to leave the normal life to take a leadership and tackle a question that say, we can live without interpreting this part of passages or evolution. We can live without it. Or even the people who were happy to apply the Saudi Arabia rules about music and mortgage and not see need to question them in Europe, for example. So do you think, like, for example, someone like al-Qaradawi, when he did something at that time was very unpopular, but nowadays people say, oh, maybe actually it's common sense to have these kind of mortgages, let's say, in Islam?
Sure. SubhanAllah, in a way, it creates diversity in opinion. And I can see how it could be, it can be problematic in the sense it gives confusion. It's like it's much easier if something is black and white, but it's not anymore. It's a bit gray. And then Qaradawi like comes and makes it expand the gray area in a way. and then it gives more choice to the people. Maybe if you take like Farabi's opinions, like whatever was the will of God, so you just accept it, and this is what Allah wanted. He wanted the gray area to expand.
Exactly, because the whole situation of the religion is changed so much beyond.
So I guess
Even
I take it as it must be for our benefits somehow.
yeah, yeah,
Whether I agree with it with mortgages or not, like it must be for our benefits. Otherwise,
yeah. I mean, yeah, and then again we talk about how people combine the mosque. Some people thought it's like oh so stupid, and now people do it. Music. Some people were not thinking about it. Now people don't even notice it, and no one's start kind of accusing that your religion is wrong because you listen to music or you don't listen to music. Like it's kind of, so you don't need a prophet, I think, because the prophet, even if the prophet came now, when he dies, you still will be another issue after immediately after he dies that needs a prophet to be sent back. So it
hmm,
so I think Allah decided there is a limit for direct revelations, and then after that everything else can be by human interpretation.
yes,
Now, is this why this different to the model where before we read in the Quran that this Ad Thamud had their own guy, and then another guy, the Jewish prophet, obviously nation had so many prophets in a series. They were not even the most populous people, but they were given, whereas the Egyptian probably were so strong a nation, even the Persian, Chinese deserve so many prophets considering the size. Uh,
hmm,
maybe they had, I don't know, but but I think Allah wants to say to the humans, the challenge, margin of error, as you say, gray area, is naturally very big, and this is not, is by design, not by mistake.
yes, yes. And in a
And
way, within it, I see mercy,
yeah,
mercy
yeah, yeah,
of being forgiven or forgivable because the choice was here, and
yes,
it was not here.
and the human experience is so varied, Adrian. When you look at how many life regions in Britain alone, you can grow in one area completely be different from the south and north. So it's like a prophet coming to that north of England will not necessarily convince the people in the south. I mean, the different experience, totally different. Um, yeah, maybe I lost the point I want to make.
Uh-huh.
But I think what we are going to be held accountable, maybe in front of Allah, is the basics. The very very big basics. Um,
I hope so.
the oh maybe this is like why even a smallest belief gets you into heaven. Um, but also when you think the at the end of the time when the Prophet Isa comes, or do you think he will say? I think it was clear in our literature that he's not going to say, "Oh, I've got a new system." He will apply.
But then that's interesting to imagine how he will apply the religion because the context will be different, will be
Yes,
totally different. So
will he come with a list of what is mortgage halal, what is mortgage? Like would he come within a very very latest list of halal and haram at that time to fit that time, or he will also sit with some people and say what is the best banking system according to the principles from the Prophet. No interest. I was kind of thinking, like, would he be an applicator or a creator
Mhm.
of 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 halal and haram?
So I'm a bit diverting from the topic, but it reminds me another um subject. It's like if there's different ways how to see the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salam. One of them is to take it as the final law. Like he's the best example and you should emulate that example as much as you can. And that's it. Another way is to see him, the Prophet ﷺ, as establishing a movement, a change. and he himself might not have achieved that change in his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the feminist readings of the Quran argues for. They take example of the slavery. It's like the objective was to abolish slavery. But in his own lifetime, the Prophet ﷺ didn't abolish slavery, but he provided a path to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
Like to give so many rewards to free slaves. And at the end, you would abolish slavery through that. And they did that example to justify the emancipation of women. They said, if you look at all the laws and his attitude towards women, it was to set up emancipation, to set up in a way a feminist revolution. But then they said that the scholars that came afterwards corrupted it or put an end to that emancipation. It's like to not see that the Prophet as setting the final verdict, the law, but as establishing a pathway towards something that is achievable in the future.
To be honest, this is a good point you mentioned, because it always not confused me, but why the Prophet ﷺ did not say, okay, slavery is bad. Okay, take your time to abolish it in a good way, and then we hear that Umar radiallahu anhu said, khalas, there's no slavery. How can you enslave people who are born free? So you would think maybe the Prophet should have said that. I mean, that's really, I don't have an answer for this, but it just, maybe you do.
So the other example they take is the one for alcohol. It's like he didn't forbid alcohol immediately, because he knew in Islam that it was not possible. But if he would have abolished alcohol immediately, no one would have followed him. So they had to go through a process. But then during his lifetime, he still achieved it. But maybe he didn't achieve all these objectives. He just set up the path towards these objectives, like abolition of slavery and like emancipation of women. And I was thinking of this to your comment about Isa alayhi salam. What if Isa comes? What will he do? Will he say like, God, this is haram, this is halal, and that's it? Or will he just continue and then try to establish new pathways to achieve these higher objectives without necessarily him putting laws in place?
Yeah.
But maybe just providing guidance and letting others develop the rulings. I don't know, that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. How much he will come with ready-made laws, do this banking, do this, do this, that, or how much he will say like, okay, we need justice, give me all the options, and I will, with the help of God, for example, revelations or whatever, decide on what is just to do now. This is right now. Because
he talking about mortgages, like how do you negotiate the financial institutions that exist? Like, do you just cancel everything and rebuild, or do you use what exists and try to ameliorate?
And how do you convince even the Muslims at that time? If someone says, I'm God, I'm sent by God, I'm Jesus, and says, do this kind of banking. I mean, like, people say, okay, shall we just do it? I don't know. I'm like, do you have a miracle to prove that you are, that this is going to work? So, yeah.
I guess we can hope that he's divinely guided. That's it.
But Adrian, like in terms of leadership and stuff, I definitely think that Allah created us with different abilities, but He definitely did not link belief to intellectuality, because that's unfair. Like you have to be of a certain knowledge. Okay, I know that if you are insane, okay, you become relieved from this. But I'm looking at all the people who are doing manual jobs and stuff. You cannot say, sorry, your sin is lower than a scientist because you are not educated like scientists. I don't think so. There is the ayah that says the most fearing of you are the scientists or the scholars. And I think that doesn't mean that they are more pious, as in no, or religious, but as kind maybe the ones that should be careful to introduce lies, because you know they are lies. For example, you bring hadith, or you say evolution is correct based on this evidence. You introduce this, so you should fear God. But a normal person walking the street will not say, oh yeah, I support this. Maybe that's why this ayah is the most fearing of you should be the scientists, because you scholars, because you introduce things.
And I guess if you're given, I don't know, if you're given the status of scholars by the society, you're still in a way in a leadership position, and you'll be influential. So whatever mistake you make will influence others. Or maybe it's because from a personal perspective, it's like, as a scientist, you might know more than others. You have more opportunities to realize who Allah is. And so you have a higher degree of responsibilities because of these opportunities. But otherwise, to come back to the text, the second text, when Farabi says, he puts philosophy above religion. And that religion is the practice, philosophy is the theory is like a higher order and should agree necessarily with the practice, which is the religion or Sharia. And I remember a podcast we made with a scientist, Muslim scientist, saying that yes, religion should agree with science regardless. You should have agreement, because it's like you have two books. One is revealed by God, the other one is created by God. And because the source is the same, you expect consistency. They should agree with one another. So revelation should match what you understand, what you discover through like scientific means about the material world. And to question whether modern science should agree with the text, she was saying it's wrong in itself. It's not the right question to ask, because they deal with different things. It's like revelation. It's like you didn't go to revelation to derive a synthetic process in your lab to make a new molecule or to derive a new vaccine. You can't. That's the wrong attitude to have. But at the end, they should still agree. It's like religion might tell you why, and the science might tell you how to do it, to achieve it. But she was saying that they should still agree. Like Farabi says, but they should agree, they should coincide. But then, if they should coincide, when you read the text, sometimes you have conflicts, apparent conflicts. Like we were discussing evolution quite a few times. That's an apparent conflict. It could be an apparent conflict. How do you reconcile? Do you enforce an evolutionary reading on the text? Or do you keep them separated? It's like the one we interviewed, the podcast we interviewed, Dr. Shanabas, keeps them separated. It's like the Quran describes something maybe metaphorically, and that's all. Science is true, like we came through evolution, and the text just describe the spiritual aspect of that creation. So it takes the creation of Adam as a realization process of hominids, maybe a chosen hominids, like a chosen human life. But it's to describe the spiritual aspect of the amana, the fact that we've been given responsibility. So he still, in a way, follows Farabi by putting science above. It's like science is right, and religion then becomes subservient, has to follow.
maybe I think he means this when you are making a new law, like for example, a new fertility law. You couldn't or you shouldn't just say this is allowed, this is not allowed without it at least being scientifically neutral. Like, um, for example, like, or burn the witches or something like this, or something called positions, or some people could be devils. I don't know, like some. I think maybe maybe sometimes we say science above religion, but maybe alongside maybe is um, and not for aqidah stuff. Like for example, when you talk about Adam, Adrian, I mean, this is not affecting the aqidah anyway, so it's okay for science to be above religion or side by side religion, because it doesn't affect the iman. It's just like how you taste it. Like,
It depends for whom, actually.
okay,
The
or
very
maybe for non-Muslims, be like a big
no,
thing. Yeah.
even the Muslim within Muslim community. The very first
Yeah.
podcast we have with Sheikh Tahsin Khan. For him, it is part of the creed to believe that Adam is directly created by Allah. He is part of the creed. If you don't believe in that, you risk to get out of the fold of Islam. And you have other names. You have
So you see, this is a problematic, because the articles of belief, we know that believe in God, the angels, and blah blah blah. That none of them has iman Adam in it. So I think just expanding.
I would argue that Adam, you must believe in Adam alayhi salam,
Yes,
because that's one of the prophets. But how he was
yes,
created,
yes.
that's how I take it. But I know some disagree with that position.
And I agree that the simplest thing is the best, which is basically he created from scratch, with the brain, with the whatever, the color, skin color, everything. But if he like a modification of existing humanoids, I'm not completely against that. If he came to Earth and there are other humanoids that are not responsible, religiously responsible, again, I mean, I don't see a problem with this. But I don't see that there is as you say, make it like part of the religion, making the belief like a hell and fire kind of thing. Like if you believe in it in hell, if you don't believe it in heaven, I think it's like you can, like exactly like you can go around with a mortgage. I think that's the wrong kind of mortgage is worse on you than the Adam story, or
But
the eating.
I'm laughing about these mortgages because I have looked within the what financial options recently, and it's really funny. You can find fatwas for each, to dismiss it, to accept it, to make it haram, and to make it halal.
I think if you want, the only way is like you treat with pork in a desert, when you feel like I have absolutely no option,
Yeah, that's one
survival. Yeah.
argument.
So you can take it like it's like when you drink alcohol when you're thirsty or something like that. That's the best approximation. So it's the fact that it may not be, or it's like when you're hungry, you're eating something that is half pork, half beef. Okay, but you're
Then,
still hungry.
okay, following on this, to come back to the text, it's like they tried in the text, they tried to justify prophethood. All right, we had a prophet, alayhi salam. Then they tried to justify the need for jurists. And then I can ask, like, do you then need someone above you to tell you what's right, what's wrong, or can you just know because you have access to the sources, to like so many, it's like beyond share Google, you have share
Yeah.
Gemini that has access to all the hadith and so on. Could you derive what's right, what's wrong for you individually, or do you still need someone else to guide you?
I think you do, Adrian, because eventually you had the moment, you have at your disposal all these fatwa about a certain issue, and you still make that decision. Okay. And that will happen, that must have happened even during the early times, like when people decided whether to become a Shia or Sunni. They maybe saw the two stories, they were very close to them. But I think what Allah will ask you for is like, you have the story about the music is halal, on haram. You had the evidence for mortgage is halal and haram, and you have your own situation. Explain to me the decision. And all the fact that you ate the pork from Tesco, or food something with pork, or you did not. Explain the situation. And I think this is where we're all different, and this is where you need the impersonal thing. Because Allah will say, oh, you didn't know? Okay, fair enough. But you knew, and you. So I really think that is the where you need the individual things.
So I mean, you'll be judged on
using the information.
Yeah.
Using the information.
On the justification you can give to back it up.
Yeah,
if it's
like
valid, it's okay.
Yeah, for example, like there are hundreds of millions of people who use the mortgage even before there is this gray area you're talking about, Adrian. Whether people eating the pork contaminated food without even asking, is the chicken halal or not? They just like so there are people who very careful, and they use the intellect. Like if you are not educated and you somehow mistaken a mortgage for allowable, okay, that's a different. When you are a scientist and you have logic, you can read English, you can read the small text, and you still say, I don't care. So I think you do need your own, as you say, your own application. But do you need you need a juror to come next to you and say, Adrian, tell me about your life. Someone visit you at home. Tell me your day-to-day life, your income, your whatever. Okay, applies to you. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Do you think you really need that minute-by-minute decision? Tailored decision.
No, but I can see that AI provides it.
Okay, maybe. But do you actually ask fatwa, Adrian, for embarrassing things about your life? Like embarrassing things you don't tell everyone about, but you do. Like do you ask Sheikh, oh, I'm doing this, is this halal or zina, or we must be applying the rules in silence.
I guess the funny thing is, like, because I have the choice of imam to whom I can ask, I know I can already guess the response depending on whom I will ask.
Yes, but also you are, with your intellect, able to know whether something is a gray, very gray, or clear, black and white. And I think if you arrive to the conclusion whether it's a gray, a black and white, maybe that's already a good use of your intellect. I think that's a good thing. And maybe Allah will ask you, if it was a black, why didn't you at least check that is a gray? Maybe you are forgiven if you think it's gray. Like, for example, now I used to have a strong opinion about mortgage, but it's difficult to argue against the people who say, no, it's a gray. It's difficult. It's like, I don't have the knowledge to say it's a black and white if people have said already there is a gray area.
Yeah, no, same. I don't have the knowledge to make.
So you can ask your religious source to make sure where you fit in the gray area.
Mm-hmm.
Are you close to the black? Are you close to the white? But, and I think, yeah. Wallahu a'lam.
It's like, and do you need to choose, or can you stay out of it and just be clear?
Yeah, but I think Adrian, Allah put us in a situation where we have to make this choice. It's not the luxury. I always say that.
True, it's a luxury.
The luxury of having like halal mortgage, halls for women, halls for men, mosque near you to pray whenever you want. So I think challenging life is part of the test.
Yes, that's what what we're discussing before. Maybe at the time of the Prophet, the test was to just obey or disobey. Let's see.
Adrian, otherwise everyone would say the safest bit in earth is either Mecca or Medina. Let's go there. Everything will be halal. Everything. Salah will be like accepted no matter what you do. You know, like yeah. I wish. Yeah. Anyway.
No, interesting. But then, in these rulings, while you try to derive rulings, one of the question I had is like, then when do you put science in? At what point science takes precedence over the literal meaning of what the ayat are doing?
Yes, that's a good question. I think, Adrian, you should make an opinion, but then also check it with a scientist. Like, for example, whoever was thinking about the mortgage, they should ask an economist, what do you think of this? Long term, is it better for Muslims to stay in this system, fight for it, call it black, or is a gray area to this extent beneficial from economist point of view? And when you come to food, okay, if people eat a little bit of 5% pork in a food, what contamination, whatever you call it, gelatin, what is the sign? What is the yes or no? If people science say we have no information, you go back to the text. If scientists, like alcohol, like the cola, when people said there's percentage of alcohol in cola, Coca-Cola or something, and then maybe the scientists say, but you can't, it's not enough for you to get drunk. That's a scientific thing. So okay, then the religious person say, okay, it doesn't make you drunk, so forget about it. It's not haram.
But then is the getting drunk is to avoid getting drunk the main objective, or is it just to not touch alcohol?
No, I think
It's like
I think that is basically a religious basis that I think it's there, that the point is to get drunk. Oh, whatever makes you drunk is the thing you have to avoid.
yeah, I would believe so, because one of the verses like you shouldn't approach your prayers, your salah, until you're confused about what you're saying.
And I think that basis allows you to say to drugs that are hashish, all this, that they are wrong, even though they are not mentioned by name. And even actually, to be honest with you, you might apply some of these to some of the antidepressants or the drugs people take nowadays, because they really maybe make you like slightly different person, but not to affect your prayer, but like.
Yeah, but then it's like, how much effect on your prayer can you accept?
But in this case, if the base is there in Islam that it has to, anything that affects your brain judgment, then you ask the scientist, does this affect the judgment or not?
Yeah.
And this is why how they affect. They said smoking is not good, because they at some point they said really scientific people, is that like endanger your life, cause you cancer? Yes. Okay. Now it's wrong.
So in the long term, it will affect.
Yeah. So this is why scientists should be consulted, and this is where. So I think what if that is what he means, like side by side, yes, but above and below is difficult to explain. Above and below, Adrian.
Yes. And that's why I would prefer the previous text from Ghazali, that he agrees that he doesn't put hierarchy, like he doesn't put one above the other. He put them side by side and said they should coincide, but maybe you will not achieve perfect.
I think it's like a logic gate, like both has to be yes for you to have an output.
And
okay.
Radha, I haven't heard from you.
You get bored. She's get bored.
No. It's very, very interesting. I think you both answered all the questions that came to mind and discussed them clearly. But just one thing, we avoid the cakes mixed with the alcohol because it's against our belief.
No, but it depends on the percentage. I mean, like.
No, it's just it should be 0%.
No, why do you say 0%? Because if you use a perfume, you inhale some of the perfume in your nose, and you get some alcohol in your nose.
I think it's not okay. Go ahead.
If I work in the lab with alcohol, it's very volatile. I can smell it. That means it's in my system.
But it does not affect on our brain or our concentration.
Exactly, and eating a cake does not affect your brain and concentration. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So like hashish doesn't have alcohol, but people say it's haram. Or cocaine, whatever that is. These kind of things. Well, no, I mean, some of these drugs affect your brain, but so I think there's a reason, and not because there are other things that affect your brain and absolutely not alcoholic. You see what I mean? Like, I don't know. Even smoking, there's no basis Islamically to ban smoking unless it is the health, like an indirect way.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Actually, some people say it's a stimulant, whatever it is good. Like coffee. I mean, even coffee, people said it's haram and halal, but no one can actually scientifically say it's leading to something. Wallahu a'lam. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah.
No, subhanallah.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. Very useful.
No, it's really good to check.
Yeah.
So next month, inshallah, we will finish with that part 1 of philosophy of religion, and then we can go to philosophy of science, inshallah. But we have a few more texts, three more texts, inshallah. Again,
inshallah. No, Jazakallah khair, Adri. I mean, these
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.